So, the new year is upon us, and many of us normally decide to make certain improvements to our lives. Eating a good diet may be one of those things we decide to implement. If you've had breast cancer, you may be wondering about what things you should and shouldn't eat. In this video, I am going to bust 3 myths surrounding breast cancer and diet. Hi, my name is Dr. Tasha and I'm a breast surgeon. Myth number 1. Sugar feeds cancer cells, so if you've had breast cancer, you should not eat sugar. This is a myth. Now, firstly, let us talk about what sugar actually is. The simplest form of sugar would be a single molecule, such as monosaccharides, for example, glucose and fructose. These are also known as single sugars. And so too are disaccharides, where 2 simple sugars join to each other, such as sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. So sugar actually comes in different forms. The white table sugar we know that we put in our teas, coffees, cakes and so on is actually sucrose. The sugar is refined, meaning it has been extracted and processed from its natural source, usually sugar beet. In actual fact, many processed foods include refined sugars, extracted and purified from plants, not only sugar beets, but also sugarcane and corn. But the thing is, we get sugars from other sources as well, such as carbohydrates. Carbs are actually made up of sugar molecules joined up together. Simple carbs include monosaccharides and disaccharides I mentioned earlier. Complex carbohydrates are actually made up of more than 2 sugar molecules. They can be split into 2 categories: oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Now, as the chains of sugars get longer, they start to lose their sweet taste. Starchy foods such as rice, bread, pasta and vegetables might not taste sweet, but they are high in carbohydrate too. Now, all cells in our body need fuel to work, and they use sugar, more specifically glucose, to function. The thing is, we can't decide which cells, whether that's our normal cells or the cancerous cells, get the sugars and which cells won't. So cutting out sugar in our diet will not restrict glucose or sugar to cancer cells. And sugars are found in plenty of healthy foodstuffs like fruits, vegetables, as well as complex carbs. And we know that actually increasing these foodstuffs reduces the risk of certain cancers. And so sugars do not fuel cancer cells. This is a myth. Myth number 2 is that dairy increases the risk of breast cancer. This myth comes from the notion that hormones used in the production of milk promotes cancer growth. There has been no link to suggest that dairy products increases the risk of breast cancer incidence, nor does it increase the risk of recurrence. According to Cancer Research UK, dairy products do contain some hormones, but the amount is very small compared to what the body makes naturally. There is no strong evidence to show that hormones in milk could go on to cause cancer. In fact, some countries use a hormone called bovine somatotropin, or BST, to speed up or increase the production of milk or meat. But in the UK and the rest of Europe, there is actually a ban on farmers using this hormone. And this ban is on animal welfare grounds, not because there is any proven effect on human health. Myth number 3 is that soy increases the risk of breast cancer. And this myth became to be because of the high levels of isoflavones in soy products. These are phytoestrogens with a similar structure to 17-beta-estradiol, a hormone in human females. Isoflavones imitate the action of estrogen on organs by binding and activating estrogen receptors. Now, because most breast cancers are sensitive to estrogen, for example, if you have an estrogen or ER-positive cancer, there was a fear that these chemicals in soy can stimulate cancer growth. However, there has been much evidence to suggest that a diet high in soy does not impact breast cancer risk, and in fact may have protective effects. A prospective study of 300,000 Chinese women on soy intake and breast cancer risk demonstrated that moderate soy intake was not associated with breast cancer risk among Chinese women. And more interestingly, they found that higher amount of soy intake might provide reasonable benefits for minimizing the risk of developing breast cancer. This finding had also been suggested previously in 2014, where the American Institute for Cancer Research and World Cancer Research Fund published a report that focused primarily on the effect of isoflavones intake by soy consumption on breast cancer survival rates for women. It concluded that despite the limited number of published studies on the matter, there exists sufficient evidence to suggest a positive outcome. It also reported that higher consumption of soy and therefore isoflavones post-diagnosis of breast cancer is associated with a reduced death rate. A recent meta-analysis published in 2022 looked at whether the amounts of soy and isoflavones consumed has a positive effect in pre- and postmenopausal women. And the authors concluded that women with high soy and isoflavone consumption have a lower risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer when compared to women that do not have soy in their dietary plan at all. So it seems that soy doesn't increase breast cancer risk, and in fact may have protective benefits instead. If you have found this video helpful, please hit the like button and I would really appreciate that. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next video.